to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3. And this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic, we're going to talk about bringing back the alphas. Bringing back the alphas. So I love the show Survivor. And if you haven't seen it or you have no idea what I'm talking about, the show Survivor is this popular reality TV show where you have a group of contestants. They call themselves castaways. They are seemingly stranded in a remote location. They are forced to work together to complete challenges, earn rewards, and build up their basic survival skills. However, during this time, they're also competing against each other to be the last person remaining. Because throughout the game, the contestants, they form these alliances, they strategize, they vote people out, and ultimately their goal is to win the grand prize of $1 million. But for me, it's just a huge social experiment. And I know that they talk about that aspect of the show as well, but that's the part of the show that I like the most. I like it because I find it hard to maintain the image of yourself or the image that you want other people to see while truly hiding your true self when you are cold and hungry. So these type of challenges, these shows like Outlast, Alone, Naked and Afraid, Survivor, they really do challenge who you are as a human being at your core, because it removes these luxuries and the comforts and the distractions and puts you face to face with yourself. So there are a lot of social dynamics that are involved, but most importantly, it highlights what will happen socially when you eliminate these narratives and the manipulation, and then you're forced to depend on others for survival. So despite what anyone looks like or what you believe, you now are in a situation where you have to depend on each other. Fortunately, we're not living on an island with strangers and the hopes of becoming a millionaire. But we are living in a society full of social constructs and systems that are designed to create a playing field where we can all win if we play the game correctly. But what happens when you're playing the game and you're going along, you're trying to do all the right things and you're following the rules, but then you're surrounded by other players who desire to change the game and change the rules in the middle of the game in some cases? Well, that's how it feels when you're fighting through the quagmire of personal perspectives and feelings and narratives, especially when you have so many subsets of groups of people who think America has gotten it wrong and that their way is better. You have millennials where we feel that we are the future. We absolutely believe that it's our time now to take the torch, but we're frustrated with the lack of support and the unwillingness to pass the torch to us when it's most appropriate. Instead, many are opting to die with the torch still in their hand. And now we have to then pry it out of their hand to jump up and try to carry the mantle behind the 8 ball in the race, because now we're behind because the torch wasn't passed in a timely fashion. And then you have Generation Z who sees the world through the lens of energy and fluidity. You got Gen Xers who think we're all crazy. And then you have emotional women who hate men, and men are annoyed with the women. And then the list goes on and on and on. But who's right? And can we really predict future outcomes based on today's information? Well, I'll say yes. You see, I truly believe in foundational norms. These things are never going to change because of a few key factors. A, it's already been manipulated and attempted to change in the past and was unsuccessful. But if you're young and you haven't done your research and you don't know this, then sometimes you may have done your research and you think, oh, I think I could do it differently. Oh, it'll work this time. No, it's not how it works. B, the present way is just the best way. And like a punching bag, no matter how hard you hit it, and no matter how many times you hit it, it's always going to come right back. And then C, it's simply engraved in the fabric of who we are as humans. And the one thing about human nature is that it ain't gonna change. And I meant to say it that way. It just ain't gonna change. So no matter the factor as to why foundational norms exist, it appears that we are living during a time where our foundational principles and norms are attacked regularly. But why? I happen to believe that it has a lot to do with competition. I am a firm believer that every human being should play sports. Kelvin and I talked about this just the other day. Everyone should be a part of team sports. And you know what? We actually have a debate going on. So I played tennis in school, and he played football, and then he did like baseball too, I think, but mainly football. And he is trying to tell me that tennis is not a team sport. Please drop in the comment section, the caption, and tell me if you believe tennis is a team sport or not a team sport. Because I'm like, I absolutely was on a team. But anyway, I digress. I'll get off my rabbit trail from that one. But yeah, but let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. But I'm one of those people who believe that team sports create team bonding and building as a child. And without it, you struggle to manage competition. And your place on the leaderboard can be quite challenging. So going back to the game Survivor. So for decades, the show has been created around nuanced environments just to see what happens. So during one particular season, they decided to place men against women. And the season was quite interesting. But I'm going to let you hear it from Dr. Orion Taraban, who provide a brief summary of what happened during that episode.
Survivor conducted a gender-based experiment and pitted men against women. Though the team started out in equal numbers, only women made it to the end game. All the men had been eliminated. And this outcome is particularly surprising given how the game began. At the beginning of the competition, when the men and women were segregated, the women didn't win a single contest. Actually, no, it's not fair to say they didn't win. They didn't even come close to winning. It was a bloodbath. The men were destroying the women on every single challenge the game presented. It soon became obvious to the women that they were not going to be able to win in a head-to-head competition against the men. And every time the women lost, another one of their numbers was voted out of the game. They understood that their days were numbered and that they would have to try to undermine the men in some other way. So what the women did was sow dissension among the men. The women observed that as powerful and skillful as the men were, this power and skill was not distributed evenly across the group. A pecking order had organically emerged, and the most competent and accomplished had risen to the top. These men, whom we could call the alphas, were responsible for a disproportionate majority of the team's success. The women were able to create dissension in the ranks by sowing doubt among the lower status men. They found some pretext or other to corner the lower status men and basically said, look, we get it. You won. We're screwed, and our time here is limited. We're not going to win. But before you start celebrating, you've got to consider, as soon as we're gone, who do you think is going to be next? Huh? Do you think you're going to beat out those alphas? As soon as we're gone, you're next on the chopping block. We can't beat those guys, but let's be honest, neither can you. So let's form an alliance against the alphas for our own mutual self-preservation. Now, on some level, this was a rational argument. However, the women also spiced this offer with a couple of emotional tidbits. First, they played on the beta male's pity by damseling, an uncommon show of their misery and helplessness in order to evoke a helping response from these men, which they eventually succeeded in doing. Before too long, these betas were sharing food and fire with the women, their competition. So by plucking on male heartstrings, the women were able to create a fifth column inside of the men's village in order to secure instrumental support, something that the alphas would be less likely to do. Second, the women lightly flirted with the betas and suggested the possibility of relationship further down the road. Like once the alphas had been removed, the women indicated that they would be able to move into the village to take their place. And wouldn't that be more pleasant company than a bunch of sweaty dudes? So through a combination of fear, pity, and desire, the women were able to persuade a group of lower status males to betray their higher status teammates. And once all the alphas were gone, guess what happened? The remaining women broke their alliance with the betas and voted every single one of them out of the game. After all, they were no longer useful.
So as you can see, the women wasn't prepared to lose by playing the game on the surface. They understood that in order to win, they thought that they would have to take an unconventional method. And that leads us to our table topic, bringing back the alphas. Because much like the game of Survivor, we are all trapped in a world with the desire to live a great life, to be healthy and safe. But what happens when it feels like there are alphas and betas, and unfortunately, you're a beta? In other words, the people winning all the challenges and appearing to advance seems to be the ones who have some form of an advantage. You think that their strength, their wealth, their intelligence, that all of those things are advantages. Then what happens when you have pockets of people who feel that they can never win as long as the game is being played the way it has been played? I can tell you what happened in every industry, but I'm going to talk about politics because that's the industry that I know. And I truly believe that it will translate, and what we're going to talk about would translate across the board. You see, in politics, when you have people who don't like how the game is being played because they feel that the way you were born is somehow an advantage and that they didn't get that advantage. What you get in politics is an influx of identity politics. You get groups of people who believe that their mission is to disrupt the norm and to make everyone who is right feel wrong. You get teenage boys dressing as girls and then jumping on their track and field team. You get a rise of Black women who have turned away from the cross and grabbed court stones and Beyonce because Jesus isn't giving them what they want fast enough. You get white liberal women who believe that all men are evil and believe white guilt should be embraced. You get young people who believe marriage isn't necessary and that being a parent is too expensive. You get young boys who feel bad about their masculinity. So much so that they lean on Andrew Tate for wisdom, who is a self-proclaimed pimp. You get little girls who call each other bro and dress and sound like little boys because being a girl is too hard. And they are told you will forever be unseen. You get evangelicals who profess Christianity and Christ as their Lord and Savior, but you can't see it in their behavior towards others. You get a society that is heading towards destruction so fast that they can't see it coming. But oh, it's coming. And after the break, I'm going to pull a few of the groups and give you my thoughts on how and why they are where they are and believe what they believe, as well as giving you my future prediction as to how they will turn out. And then I'm going to close the show discussing why betas should not be in certain leadership roles and why this topic needs to be said and not ignored. I'm going to bring Dr. Orion back and let him close out the show with his expert explanation as to how we got to a position where we are now being led by mostly betas and all the alphas have been kicked out. You're listening to the Janelle King Show. This is Extra 106.3. Don't leave the table. Thank you so much for joining the show. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload new content. Now back to the discussion. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And our table topic today is bring back the alphas. Now, listen, in the context of social norms, you have alphas and you have betas. And these are terms that are used to describe different social roles within groups. You have the alphas who are typically seen as dominant, confident, assertive, and all of that stuff. They typically take leadership roles that have them at the top of the ticket or, ones driving it. They tend to be extremely influential and are perceived as strong, competitive, and self assured. And then you have betas who are categorized as more passive, more submissive, more subordinate in social groups, mostly out of choice because that's just how they are. They tend to be very cooperative, very supportive, less assertive, often following the lead of alphas. Not because they can't do for themselves, but because they know where they're best utilized. Traits associated with being alpha or beta are influenced by a combination of genetics, environmental factors, and social factors, rather than just being determined solely at birth. Although there are many who will say that you are born alpha or beta. I'm someone who definitely believes that. I believe that, due to being born with biological predispositions, you typically see it show up in their temperament, their personality traits, or even in they even have some hormonal influences that you can see. However, the most dominant forces are the environment, learned behavior, and situational factors. People who are forced into leadership roles at a young age, going back to what I said before the break about people playing in team sports, tend to rise as certain leaders and types of alphas. Now, there are definitely several different societal groups, such as Gamma, which I think I have a lot of Gamma in me, which is often described as independent people who are nonconformists and often misunderstood individuals. You have Omegas, who are usually categorized as people who are outside the traditional hierarchy or seen as loners. Then you have Sigmas, who are recognized as people who are self-reliant, confident individuals who just don't seek to be in leadership roles or followerships. But they still possess some strong traits and tend to be independent and assertive. Either way, whether you want to admit it or not, most of us will fall into the category of either alpha or beta. Both carry very unique sets of strengths and weaknesses. For example, alpha pros are that they have strong leadership qualities, often good at making decisions and guiding other people. They're very confident, they're very assertive, which can inspire, trust, and motivate teams. Often successful in competitive environments due to their drive and dominance. On the other hand, they can come off as a little aggressive, overly dominant, and a little intimidating. And they struggle sometimes with collaborations and are oftentimes seen as being arrogant or dismissive of other people's opinions. On the flip side, you have betas who come with their on the flip side, you have betas who come with their set of strengths and weaknesses also. They're usually cooperative, supportive, good listeners. They're really good at building strong and trusting relationships, less aggressive, which can make them approachable and empathetic. But they also are perceived as passive and lacking confidence in leadership roles. So sometimes they're hesitant to assert themselves or take charge, and that can overshadow them in competitive environments or group settings. So there isn't really a hierarchy per se, but there are clearly different personality traits which impact the type of leader and decisions one will make. So for centuries, alphas ran the world as our dominant leaders, while betas supported the effort, ensuring the mission is carried out. Both are necessary. Let me say that again. Both are necessary. But unfortunately, there are those who are betas who wish to hold the power position of an alpha. But you don't possess the traits needed to maintain what they have built. And they believe that the same results can be accomplished by other means. Or they're typically thinking that I can go in and be less aggressive or more compassionate or a little more passive, and then I'm somehow going to get the same results. Now, it's important to note that beta does not mean weak or less than. It's all about your style of leadership and where it is best represented. And I see some betas doing some really good things in leadership. And I know for a fact that I would be terrible in those roles, but they excel. So I don't want to make it sound like being beta means anything other than just your personality style. And I believe that confusing the two or acting like beta is somehow meaning weak, I think that is what's causing some of the problem that we're currently facing. So why am I talking about this? Because the conversation around young men, particularly those who are Gen Zers, mostly white, the Joe Rogan fans, has caused us to take a deeper look at the state of our leadership. And according to a recent poll by CNN, 16% of Americans see the Democrat Party as a party of strong leaders. 16%. And when you drill down, and when you drill down, the question was asked to Democrats if they believe that their party is the party with strong leaders. And only 32% shared that sentiment, compared to 82% of Republicans who feel that the Republican Party has strong leaders. And to add insult to injury, only 41% of Democrats think that their party is getting things done. And to add insult to injury, only 41% of Democrats think that their party is the party that can get things done, while 77% of Republicans feel that our party is the party that can get things done. And when it comes to the economy, Trump gained 3 points by those who were surveyed who believe Trump is still the man to fix the economy. I think he was at a Republican +9 in 2024, right before the election. Early 2024 before the election. And then they did a recent poll to just see where he is. And he's at like a R+12 now. So he's growing, even though they're trying to hit him with terror. They're hitting on all angles, but he's growing in popularity as it relates to the economy. He's maintaining that people still believe President Trump is the one to fix the economy. No matter how much you try to manipulate the messaging, no matter how many times Michelle Obama acts like men are Satan and women are saints, no matter how many tours Bernie Sanders goes on, you cannot change human nature. We are designed to gravitate behind the person we feel can get the job done, not the person who says they can or thinks they can or believes they can. We must feel that they can, and there are a variety of factors to consider. And if we're really being honest, this is the very issue that brings me the most comfort going into the midterms. Because I believe that Republicans will still dominate in the midterms as long as we continue to be alphas as it relates to messaging. We know that there are only 2 genders. We have to stand strong there. We can't allow subgroups that are more of the beta persuasion to try to come and overtake our thoughts and make us say, no, we're not going to believe this anymore. That's ridiculous. The problem with this thought process is that it has been proven to be flawed, but like most cycles of life, the flaw tends to repeat itself if we are not aware and it goes unchecked. So, which beta groups feel they can walk into the alpha lane and not just take it over, but do a better job? Well, let's start with Black women liberals. Emphasis on liberals, because my conservative sisters are not of this mindset. When I hear Black liberal women complain about all the things that they are being held back on and all the things that's harming them, it's actually quite fascinating. Because if you believe them, then you would think that these women are super women. Because according to them, every single day they wake up They are fighting the white man, racism, misogyny, the black man, police, poverty, child trauma, dating trauma, colorism, other women that are hating on them. I mean, they're fighting everything all the time, except for their own debilitating belief system. And it's not all. There are certainly some who are not attacking men or pushing for independence, but have to keep it to themselves because God forbid they share it with any of their sisters. It would be a whole other conversation. But what has this forced takeover of the alpha spot of protector and provider gotten them? Singleness, depression, and poverty, obesity, just sadness. But y'all keep listening to Michelle and Beyonce and them. Keep on. We're going to see what happens. Now, these are the women that's running around saying we are the most educated, we're the most this, we're the most that, we're all this great, we're just amazing, right? Like black women can never do anything wrong. Excuse me, black liberal women who think like this can never do anything wrong. They're just always right. It's always the other person. It's always some external force is blocking them and stopping them. And I remember hearing Michelle Obama complain because she said that someone walked past her and shook Barack's hand while he was the sitting senator. Now, she wasn't elected to anything, but she was upset that she did not get that first handshake, but her husband did, who's in service. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But here's another group. There's another group who are certainly a part of the beta society, but wish to be a part of the alpha pack. Are transgender people. I remember watching Dave Chappelle's stand up and he was talking about the LGBTQ community. And one of the things he said was that, the LGBTQIAs were all like minding their business, but he has a major issue with the T's. And I have to agree. It's the T's. Because we've been living with the gays in harmony for decades. No matter your personal opinion on their lifestyle, something changed when transvestites turned into transgenders. Now you have men claiming that they can give birth, that they understand my female struggle, that they somehow have a PMS cycle. Can you take ours? I mean, really? And now they can play in our sports. And let me tell you something. Do you remember the boxing Olympian who nearly killed a woman in the ring during the Paris Olympics last year? The person who claimed to be a woman when we could all see the lie because it was literally written all over their face with that jawline. Listen to this article. So the title of the article is Olympic Boxer Emain Khalif's leaked lab results offer new evidence about her biological sex. So that's the name of the article. I'm going to have the link in the caption so you can either read along or you can check it out later. So here we go. Newly leaked test results prove that Olympic boxer Emain Khalif does have male chromosomes, after the International Olympic Committee dismissed the claims as not legitimate and let her compete in the Paris 2024 Games. Khalif, a 26-year-old who has long maintained that he is female, was found to have male XY chromosomes in a 2023 test carried out by an accredited Indian doctor. Newly obtained test results leaked by Three Wires Sports show. I quote, chromosome analysis reveal male karyotype, read the test results, referring to male chromosomes, which left Khalif barred from the 2023 Women's World Boxing Championship in India. The test was conducted before that tournament by Dr. La Path Labs, a New Delhi lab with accreditation from the American College of Pathologists and certification from international organization and standardization documents show. But despite those bona fides, the IOC dismissed the test as not legitimate and ad hoc, according to The Telegraph, and allowed Khalif to compete in the women's division of the 2024 Paris Olympics. Leaders of the Olympic Committee went a step further and even suggested that the test could be misinformation planted by none other but Russia. Why do we always put everything on Russia? But okay, I digress. Where world boxing is based to prevent the dominant athlete from competing on the world stage. Khalif went on to win the gold medal in Paris and left a sport marred with controversy. While competitors expressed fears about facing her in the ring, Italy's Angela Carini said she feared for her life during an Olympic bout against Khalif that lasted only 46 seconds. The year before Khalif's chromosomal test, Mexico's Brianna Tamara Cruz also said that she had a similar experience. This is what she said. I don't think I have ever felt like that in my 13 years as a boxer, nor am I sparring with men, she said of her fight. The leak of Khalif's 2023 test comes just days after controversy was renewed about world boxing mandated that athletes 18 or older must undergo genetic testing, which consists of cheek swab if they want to compete in women's events. Khalif has never provided any evidence beyond her word to prove that she is a woman, but has vowed to compete in the upcoming games. Now, I repeat, they dismissed the chromosome test, but did not demand that he provide any evidence on his own that he is claiming to be what he is saying he is. I dropped the link below. You got to read it for yourself. But this is horrible. You talk about taking it by force. You talk about saying, you know what? I'm a beta man who can't win against alpha men. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put on a wig and then I'm going to jump into the boxing ring, a boxing ring. And I'm going to beat the hell out of women. That is what they said. That is what the transgender community is embracing. And I'm just like, at this point, are we really going to continue to ignore that we are giving men a license to beat on women? Listen, no matter where your personality falls, there is something to be said about us allowing those who are not equipped to lead to take the reins simply because they desire to have it. Or because you think that aligning with them will somehow help you. This is a new phenomenon. And I remember hearing during campaigns and with campaign leaders, I remember hearing them saying things when we were behind the scenes and we're trying to like vet candidates and like, is this a good person for this role or what do we think and all this other stuff. There were conversations like, oh, he's too short. He's too fat. I don't know. That person seems to be looks a little weak. I mean, look at Governor Chris Christie. He knew that he couldn't win overweight. You want to know why? It's because it looks like a sign of a lack of discipline. It's not about being fat phobic and all these other things that people are calling it. Because that's what happens when you introduce a beta mentality that's really compassionate and more submissive and really want to embrace everybody at every time and for everything. That type of energy will tell you that you're fat phobic. If you tell someone who's overweight that you may not be in the best shape for this role because it comes with a lot of stress. And if you're already physically unhealthy, you're setting yourself up to fail. And if you don't have the discipline to lose the weight, then how do I trust that you'll have the discipline to make tough decisions? But for those of you who think that I'm just venting, after the break, I am going to let you hear from Dr. Orion Taraban because he's going to break down this very issue. We're almost there. Don't leave the table. You're listening to the Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining the show. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload new content. Now back to the discussion. This is the Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3, where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And if you're joining us for the first time, don't worry. You can catch an encore episode tomorrow at 9 a.m. right here on Extra 106.3. And remember, our podcast drops every Tuesday wherever you get your podcast. And if you're feeling eager, you can watch the video podcast right now on YouTube. Just remember to subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble pages, and your likes, comments, and shares are always welcomed. Now grab a seat and let's get back to the table. That's right. This is the Janelle King Show. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic, bring back the alphas. So why are we talking about this? Because the conversation around young men, particularly those who are Gen Zers, mostly white, the Joe Rogan people, has caused us to go deeper into this, to look at the state of our leadership. And as I stated in the first segment, I want to rehash this poll. According to a recent poll by CNN, 16% of Americans see the Democrat Party as a party of strong leaders. And when you drill down even more and you ask these Democrats if they believe that their party has the party of strong leaders. So, 60% of overall Americans, well, we got it. All right. We got a lot of conservatives in there. But let's just ask the Democrats. When you ask the Democrats what they think about their own party and whether their own party consists of strong leaders, only 32% felt that they did, while 82% of Republicans felt that the Republican Party has strong leaders. And if you go any further, or if you want to go any further, we have 41% of Democrats who believe that their party gets things done, in comparison to 77% of Republicans who have faith in their party that they would get things done. And when it comes to the economy, Trump has gained 3 points since the last time they asked the surveyors whether or not they believe that Trump is still the man to fix the economy. It was at +9 right before the election in 2024, or I say around this time, the early part of 2024, and it's at +12 today. So no matter how much you manipulate the messaging, no matter how many times, you have Michelle Obama who's like, oh my God, I hate men, I hate my husband, I hate everybody. Women are great, women are all these things. The reproductive system is not for reproducing, whatever else she's saying. No matter how many times you see Bernie Sanders out there doing his oligarch tour as he's like bowing down to them. I mean, it's all silly. The fact of the matter is human nature is human nature. You're not going to be able to change it. We are designed to gravitate towards people who know how to get the job done. We don't care about all the talk. We got to feel that they can. And that's because we want to see people who are strong. We want to see people who can lead. We want to see people who give us the illusion of strength, at least, because we know that that matters when you're talking to other leaders. So why does it feel like we're living through a world where it feels like betas are running everything and doing it their way, of course, but it's just not turning out well? From Black women to trans and all the other beta groups, they believe that there is something special about the lane occupied by others, so much so that they want to get out of theirs. And these people believe that it's so difficult to get into that lane. I feel like we're living in a bit of a twilight zone. As I stated before, it's so important to note that beta does not mean weak. It does not mean less than. It's simply a leadership style. Do you lead with a iron fist and a velvet glove, or do you lead with more compassion and passiveness? It's all about leadership. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to hear a snippet from Dr. Orion Taraban, providing us with what he thinks. This is his perspective on why he believes we're seeing so many betas leading. Take a listen.
So, this is my best explanation as to why there are so many beta males in positions of power and authority today. It's a stage in the process. For the last few decades, we've collectively been voting the alpha males out. And this has really only been possible because women have been able to forge an alliance with lower status men. And like the TV show, this has largely been done through the manipulation of emotion, especially through the concepts of maleness and masculinity. Across the same timeline, all of the traits associated with traditional masculinity, the toughness, the strength, the stoicism, etc., have been rebranded as toxic. Impressionable young people who are typically still sorting out who they are and who rely heavily on external approval to navigate this process have been raised with a notion of what makes a man good that has almost entirely been constructed by women. You can see this most clearly in the shaming language that women employ. A real man is always defined vis-a-vis his relationship with women, never to himself. And this, in turn, has created generations of weak, misguided men who have gotten this way by trying to rise to the conception of manhood that has been formulated by women. Is it likely that this conception that women have created is exclusively or even primarily in the best interests of the men involved? Just put the shoe on the other foot. Ask women whether they believe that traditional models of femininity, which were largely defined by men, exclusively or even primarily serve the best interests of women. How do you think they would respond? But we're to believe that women are so altruistically blind to self that the definitions of masculinity and of ideal male behavior that they promote have nothing to do with their own agendas? In any case, women have succeeded in seducing a subset of men into betraying their brothers. That is, to align with their conceptualization that traditional masculinity, against which they might not be able to successfully compete, is toxic and misogynistic, in exchange for female approval, a need that is so deeply instilled in so many men that in many cases it is indistinguishable from their own self-worth. This alignment not only produces fewer alpha males with each subsequent generation, but it also creates a powerful voting bloc capable of removing the remaining alphas from positions of authority using ideologically backed policy initiatives as well. And why is this occurring? Because, just like on Survivor, the modern woman is in competition with the modern man. Gone are the days of complementarity in which men and women functionally moved in separate orbits. The modern woman is in her masculine, and she has chosen, or has been forced, or has been incentivized, depending on your perspective, to enter into historically male social domains and carve out a space there. They want money and power and status and recognition. And to get those things, they have to beat out the men who also want those things. The issue is that, just like on Survivor, the alpha males are extremely difficult to beat in direct competition. Like even the other men couldn't beat them. So these men have to be removed from the game if women have a chance of occupying the highest positions of power and authority. And the play for the last several decades has been to make all the traits and attributes associated with these alpha men morally reprehensible. Morally reprehensible. This has been done by controlling the narrative of what makes for a real man or a good man, and increasingly through moralization masked as medicalized language. Only the most strong-willed and disagreeable of men are able to resist this, especially if it is fed to them from the time they are young boys as yet incapable of critical thought.
I know that was just a snippet, and I want you to hear the entire explanation. So you can look in the description of this podcast and check it out for yourself and go listen after you finish listening to me. So although I do believe that we are certainly living in these interesting times, I was encouraged when I saw so many people vote for Trump in 2024. Not because it's Trump, but because they realized that we, the people, needed to be taken off of autopilot and to take our rightful place and fulfill our duty by getting rid of the problem and replacing it with a better option. Let's get back to holding our leaders accountable. We are not we the sheeple. It's we the people. It's a declaration that rang out during the Philadelphia Convention that formed this union. And it's based on what we want. Let's get back to placing service above all, and let's embrace our own strengths and weaknesses, get back in our lanes, understand that leaders come in many forms, but not everyone can lead. As always, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never stop seeking the truth.